Speaker, code 249, open the door.
Thank you so much.
As P.T. Barnum once said, always leave them wanting more. Thank you. What, was that too abrupt? I'm sorry, I'm not so good at endings. It's not only in speech, though. My goodbyes get pretty weird in real life, too. I mean, to go for the handshake, the fist bump, the bro hug, the kiss, the rock, paper, scissors, the Fruit Loops, the jellyfish. I mean, I personally try to avoid high-fiving goodbye because a poorly timed high five is a real slap in the face. But I guess it's all a matter of knowing how to say goodbye. Goodbyes. What are those? Seriously, what are those? According to the Pew Research Center, over 80% of American adults feel that they don't know how to deal with goodbyes and avoid them at all costs. The thing is, goodbyes are unavoidable. From watching the last episode of a TV series to leaving a group of friends for the night, we're constantly reminded that nothing lasts forever, and we'll inevitably have to say goodbye. And although the struggle of saying goodbye to a TV show may seem trivial, when we lose the ability to quit a dead-end job, leave an unhealthy relationship, or cope with the death of a loved one, we're left feeling unhappy, incomplete, and even absolutely stuck. It's time we say goodbye to this age-old dilemma. We'll begin by examining the cultural origins of goodbye and how they translate into the modern era. Next, we'll explore how much we risk losing when we lack a proper goodbye. And finally, we'll find a path towards a better goodbye. You know, they say the two worst things in life are saying goodbye and recycling jokes. Thank you. So, why do most of us agree that the word goodbye is as gross as the word moist or ointment or puberty? Blech. Well, as Scientific American explains in May of 2012, goodbye is actually a contraction of God be with ye, a 16th century prayer said during farewell ceremonies for a safe life. In other words, goodbye used to refer to a major change in our life course. No wonder we struggle with knowing how to say goodbye today. As Dr. Jacob Olson of the University of Iowa contends, because goodbye insinuates that our status quo is changing, it triggers our inner metathesiophobia, or fear of permanent change. And while it may seem unlikely that our discomfort with everyday goodbyes stems from such a deeply rooted fear, the research tells a different story. A 1999 study from MIT found major similarities between the brain waves of average Americans leaving the office at the end of the day and those of baby chimpanzees being torn from their mother's arms. In other words, every time we say goodbye, our brains go into freak-out mode, and we don't know how to respond. Let's be honest. How many of us have stayed in never-ending text conversations for fear of being rude? Well, don't worry. There's an app for that. This app, creatively called Saying Goodbye, feeds us spontaneous excuses to end a text conversation. Among them are, my dog has this really bad rash and the vet closes early today. Or, my son has this really bad rash and the vet closes early today. As silly as this app is, it illustrates just how much we freak out during even the most casual goodbyes. It seems we'll do anything to avoid saying goodbye, including not saying it at all. The New York Times discusses on June 26th of 2015 a new phenomenon known as ghosting, where an individual ends a relationship by simply disappearing. cutting off all communication with their significant other. And according to a YouGov poll, over 11% of American adults have been ghosted in their lives. As one victim tells The Times, he went home to take a nap one day and said, "I'll call you." I'm still waiting. 2 years later. You see, when we don't say goodbye to one chapter of our lives, we lose the ability to move on with our lives. And we become stuck. A few years ago, I participated in a Jewish community service project known as Oratory, where community members visit homebound elderly citizens once a month. There was one woman, Anna, who I visited every month. We'd do crossword puzzles, I'd show her magic tricks, and we would just talk. She was like a grandmother to me. But one day she suddenly canceled our monthly meeting and told me to visit in a couple of days because she needed to see me. And you know, every day I told myself I would go visit her, and every day I told myself, I'll just visit tomorrow. The thing is, tomorrow never came. 1 week later, Anna passed away, and I never got to say goodbye. I can't do the road anymore. I want to, but it's now just too hard for me starting a relationship knowing it's just gonna end soon. Our fear of goodbye is preventing us from living our lives. And I don't think there's an app for that. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. And if I had $1 for every time I heard somebody say that, I'd be making money in a very weird way. But as cliche as this saying is, it just might be our solution. You see, the reason we have such difficulties with goodbye is because we misconceive of what a goodbye actually is. Goodbye is not a moment in time, but a process. Dr. Craig James Revere explains that the process of saying goodbye is like walking through a doorway. First, let's unlock the door and acknowledge our feelings. If we're sad, feel sad. If we're angry, feel angry. We need to be careful and only accept our feelings, not become them. Next, let's open the door and be thankful. Let's give thanks for the times we had and for the memories that can last a lifetime. Once we do this, we can finally walk through the door and enter the rest of our lives. In August of 2015, Rebecca Gregory sat down to pen a goodbye letter. She wrote, "I'm sure it won't shock you when I say we've grown apart. The love we once had has dwindled, and this relationship has become a real burden on my life. So go get yourself one last pedicure and enjoy it, because tomorrow, I'll be cutting you out of my life for good." But this letter wasn't to an ex-boyfriend. It was to her leg. You see, Gregory was a victim of the Boston Marathon bombing. And while she did survive the attack, she completely lost function in her left leg. After years of anger and denial, she finally accepted that it would have to be amputated if she ever wanted to walk again. So last summer, she underwent the surgery. And this past February, 6 months after receiving her new prosthetic leg, Rebecca Gregory ran her first marathon since the bombing. After years of being stuck, she could finally both figuratively and literally walk through the door. A. Milne, author of the Winnie the Pooh series, once wrote, "How lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard." And aren't all of us here today so lucky to have something that makes saying goodbye this hard? You know, a few weeks ago, it dawned on me. My time in this activity is running out. 4 years, 54 tournaments, and a countless number of friends and memories later, and it's time for me to hang up the suit. And I'm scared. I'm scared because everything that happens could be the last time it ever does. My last time back to school shopping, my last snow day, my last tournament. And this is the last speech I'm ever going to give. But the lessons I've learned here will stick with me forever. From learning how to tie a tie, still kind of working on that, to learning how to change a life. I will never truly have to say goodbye to speech. And I'll probably force my kid to do this in high school anyway. But until that day comes, to all of you in this community that have completely shaped who I am today, it's time to say goodbye.